Hi, Lucas. Yeah, I am here with Mayor Brian Treece tonight, and it's going to be a little bit of a different city council meeting. Kind of talk about what this is going to look like. We're going to live stream at 6 o'clock when it comes to the pre-council, but then at 7 o'clock when there's usually a room full of people, to me look a little different. Kind of walk us through that.
It is. People will see something different. Of course, you're in the city's socially distant studio right now, but at tonight's city council meeting, we are encouraging people to stay at home and submit their written comments. We've already received a lot of written comments on each agenda item for tonight's meeting. Those will be shared with the City Council. I'll recite them as well. But you're also only going to see the bare minimum. Only 4 City Council members here necessary for a quorum. The rest will be attending and participating at the meeting via video conferencing, and I'll be trying to recognize them and record their votes while gathering all of this public input. And it is really a reflection of the times that we're in right now.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, today or even over the weekend, some new numbers came out when it comes to the projected peak for the state of Missouri. Last week we were looking at possibly towards the end of May 21st, and now it's moved up to April, mid-April. What is the discussion now moving forward?
Well, I've always, look, from the very beginning, I've said we're going to lead with the epidemiology, we're going to be prepared but not panic, and we're going to remember our values and show compassion. And I think as we look at the epidemiology of this and where we're at with that trend line coming forward, I want to caution the public. Columbians have been great. We're nearly 2 weeks into our stay-at-home order, and we're beginning to see the effects of that now. Whether that's a peak or a plateau right now, this is not a time to let up. People need to continue to maintain their current practices of staying at home, limiting their travel to essential business, because it is having a dramatic effect, and that's what we're seeing here with the number of positive cases plateauing, but there is still, while there's a decline in the travel-related transmission, we're still seeing an increase in that community transmission, and that's what we're trying to stop.
The governor on Friday issued a statewide order to go into effect this morning, and I know that's something that you've definitely pushed for, and wanting the whole state to have a similar stay-at-home order. And something else that he did was he also kind of, on top of that, he also added another layer for essential businesses to have a limited number of people in there. Do you think that's the right move moving forward? I
do. And the statewide order is not as strong as what you see here in Columbia or St. Louis or Kansas City, but I do think it's necessary, and I hope it's in time to have the same effect statewide that we have experienced here in Columbia. Yes, and that, having some type of statewide definition for essential businesses is important, but for those businesses that do remain open, making sure that they have 10 or fewer, in this case 10% of the fire code of occupancy there, and maintain those social distancing rules is going to have an effect.
Sure. And I think, he even mentioned that there is a concern for hot spots with some of these essential businesses. Have we seen any issues with businesses not following the stay at home since that's been in effect?
As we announced that 2 weeks ago, we really wanted to take an education approach to enforcement, and we have our building inspectors that are now cross-trained working with businesses when they have questions. And if we see a flagrant violation of that, we'll engage. But I've been very impressed with the businesses and the steps that they have taken, from wiping down carts to limiting the people that come into stores, have a manager that is welcoming people in and then wiping down the carts when they leave. There's just a number of steps that businesses can take to stay safe.
I know a lot of the county leaders and city leaders and just statewide leaders have a meeting every afternoon to kind of talk about an update. What are some of the things that you can tell people in Columbia and in Missouri?
Well, I'm so proud of everybody in Boone County, from our emergency management system to our first responders to our social service providers, and of course our public health team that is doing all the contact tracing here. The level of coordination and communication is not unlike anything that you would see in any other natural disaster, and that's what it takes. And when I talk about being prepared but not panic, this is exactly what we're talking about.
Sure. I spoke with Commissioner Fred Perry on Friday, and we talked about the number of hospital beds, ICU beds, and ventilators, and he says he believes Missouri is pretty prepared. Do you have that same sort of feeling?
I do, although I've always said Columbia could be disproportionately impacted by this because so many people, 14,000 people from 25 counties, come to Columbia for their primary care at some of our excellent health care providers here. And the numbers that I pay attention to are not just the positive cases in Boone County, but it's the positive cases coming out of Callaway or Audrain or Montauk or Cooper County, where they no longer have rural hospitals, and that they could be coming here to take advantage of our excellent health care team here. But we have to to pay attention to those neighbors as well.
And have you heard any discussion when it comes to the Missouri National Guard? I know they were in town looking at the Hearn Center possibly, and now Mizzou Arena. What are those discussions looking like?
You know, I think if you ask the National Guard what they were looking for, they're not sure themselves. I think that's part of an abundance of caution to find, you know, do we have overflow capacity? What is our pandemic plan? And to lay a set of eyes on those before we need them. And I think that's appropriate preparedness.
Okay, thank you so much, Mayor Treece, for answering some of these questions. I know a lot of Mid-Missourians will appreciate that as well. And like we were saying earlier tonight, Lucas, is that the pre-council meeting will start at 6 o'clock. That's going to be live streamed, and then that 7 o'clock council meeting will follow shortly after that. So for now, reporting live here in Columbia, Deborah Kendrick, ABC 17 News.